And hello again, I'm Dazza Greenwood, lecturer here at the MIT Media Lab.
Thomas Harjona, Executive Director of the Kerberos Consortium at MIT.
And this is another installment of our updates on the Core Identity and Persona initiative here at MIT. And we are very, very lucky to have with us today Tim Reinecker, a longtime colleague and friend, and one of the nation's real experts in identity law, and specifically in e-notarization. Yeah. And one of the collaborators with our program here at MIT on core identity and personas. So we had a few questions to ask, and why don't you top us off?
Great to have you today, Tim. So, as you know, we have this big initiative at MIT called Core ID. We are, seeking your expert opinion about some of the legal aspects of Core ID. What do you think would be the most significant feature or aspect of a Core ID infrastructure that we need to address, going forward?
Well, and thank you for the introduction, and Dazza and Thomas, I'm very delighted and proud to be working with you in this very important program. And having been the past executive director of the National Notary Association and now director of Digital Services Group at a law firm in Richmond, I have had a lot of experience in identity management, electronic signatures. And based on that, I'm very excited about the Core ID program because it is consistent completely with the centuries-old common law framework built around signature law. So in fact, there is a long, well-defined set of laws around signatures. And you might be wondering why I'm talking about signatures, but we're supposed to be talking about identity credentials. And this has been, as a lawyer, part of the mystery to me why so many people have been ignoring signature law. And because for centuries, the functions of signatures in adopting contents of documents, and now increasingly to access networks information in terms of sign-on and single sign-on, and then also in signing emails, sending information. People have been able to choose from amongst many forms to do this. Mm-hmm. They have not been required in a common law system to have just one form given to them that they don't control. The individual under legal structures controls his or her identity for signing purposes, and that to me is what the Core ID enables. The Core ID program initiative here at MIT enables individuals to authenticate themselves for multiple purposes and for use with multiple business models. In contrast with the current NSTIC program, which is to be applauded, and it's been a very creative process, the country's leading minds. But if you notice, they're almost all engineers and policy people. In fact, it's expressly headed up by NIST. And as a result, the discussion becomes much more about systems, ecosystems, processes, not legal acts, more about efficiency, not about responsibility. Law is much more, the focus of law is about connecting value to events, about finding responsibility for acts and consequences for acts. Mm-hmm. And that's not what systems do. That's not what engineers are charged to do. So I think that Core ID gets us back to what this discussion should be about, which is about giving individuals control, ability to have responsibility for his or her act.
Interesting. Yeah, that reminds me of the legal definition of a signature, which if you look at the Uniform Commercial Code, that tracks pretty well to broad practice. Any symbol or method executed or adopted by a party with a present intent to authenticate or agree to a record, some kind of a writing. I think that's generally the idea. And as you were just alluding to, in signature law, it really didn't talk about the need to authenticate that person. You know, it could be a charcoal X, as opposed to, you know, a signature where you can do signature analysis and show that was Thomas or that was Tim. And yet now that we move to the digital age, of course, you know, from your e-notarization and your notarization and other work, there is a new kind of need to begin to look at how authentication of a person connects to their electronic or digital signatures. And that really gets down to who controls, as you were saying, right, the mechanism by which the signature is executed by the person. There's a lot of systems where service providers can control it, in a sense, or where your employer can control it, or others, and maybe you're licensed to use it in some way or something like that. But is there a way where an individual person has a kind of inherent, unalienable control over a mechanism, at least in principle, of identity and a way to authenticate it, from which they could execute, in this case you're saying a signature, which is, in some ways that's the business end. What do you do with identity in an economy, in politics with a ballot and a candidate? At some point, signature is really it's the value moment of the use of identity in so many ways. So it's really interesting that you're connecting these pieces. You know, that's one of the reasons why, of course, we've invited Tim to be a member of the team and one of the associates in the Brain Trust for the MIT Core ID initiative.
And so, going from there, Daz, you can see the immense challenge that has been given to engineers in trying to come up with a one-size-fits-all solution. And for example, in terms of use of signatures for signing documents, or just in general for the various business policies, the signature has to, of course, connect an individual to an official document. And that's, in that sense, that's one bucket of value propositions. But and along with that, the law recognizes value in many cases for an anonymous signature. And for example, for political free speech purposes. So there's a case of, and for another interview we can talk about how value is defined, but law, there's two examples, how law defines value. And so that the signatures have to be able to, there has to be a way to enabling a person to sign anonymously.
Right. If only there was some way to have a core ID and then more than one persona, that would solve hey, wait a minute.
Well,
if you want to find out more about the MIT proposed emergent architecture for core IDs and personas, also enabling anonymous identification, including possibly signature functions, right? You can sign up at coreid.me. Yeah, of course. That's our current website. We'll be porting it to mit.edu domain, but coreid.me for now. We'll have this interview and we'll have some deeper resources, and under the contact menu you can let us know who you are and your email address, and we'll send you this white paper and we'll let you know as our slides and presentations come online and we start to explore more deeply the intersection of law and business and technology as three critical inputs to a kind of usable online identity architecture that will get us from the industrial age fully into the digital age. So until then, from MIT, thanks again for joining us, right?
Thank you, Tim.
and thank you for having me as part of this collaboration.
Really good to have you. So until next time, see you online.